So I want to start with a story. A Friedman's fable. This is one of my favorites of his, and I want to share it with you. And I'll try to be as animated with you as I am with my students. This is a story of a man on a bridge. Okay, anybody heard that fable before? Man on a bridge. It probably is. It's one of his more famous ones. Once upon a time, there was a man who, looking for a fulfilled life, tried and succeeded and failed at many things, but none of them really fulfilled him. Well, one day, an opportunity for him to experience exactly the way of living he had dreamed about came. But the opportunity would only be available for a short time and would never come again. Well, eager to take advantage of this opportunity, the man starts on his journey to reach the city where he would begin. With each step, he moved faster and faster. Each time he thought about his goal, his heart beat quicker. And with each vision of what lay ahead, he found renewed vigor. As he hurried along, he came to a bridge that crossed through the middle of a town. The bridge spanned high above a dangerous river. After starting across the bridge, he noticed someone coming from the opposite direction. The stranger seemed to be coming toward him and greet him. As the stranger grew closer, the man could discern that they did not know each other, but yet they looked amazingly similar. They were even dressed alike. The only difference was that the stranger had a rope wrapped many times around his waist. If stretched out, the rope would reach a length of perhaps 30 feet. The stranger began to unwrap the rope as he walked. As the two men met at the top of the bridge, the stranger said, "Pardon me, would you be so kind as to hold the end of this rope for me?" The man agreed without a thought. Reaching out, he took the end of the rope that was offered him. "Thank you," said the stranger. And then he added, "Be sure to hold it with both of your hands now. And remember, hold really tight." At that point, the stranger jumped off the bridge. The man on the bridge abruptly felt a strong pull from the now extended rope. He automatically held tight and was almost dragged over the side of the bridge. "What are you trying to do?" the man shouted down to the stranger below. "Just hold tight," said the stranger. This is ridiculous, the man thought. He began trying to haul the other man back to safety. Again, he yelled over the edge of the bridge, "Why did you do this?" "Remember," the stranger yells back, "if you let go, I will plummet into the river and be lost." "But I can't pull you up," the man cried over again. "I'm your responsibility," cried the stranger. "I didn't ask for this responsibility," said the man. "If you let go, I will die," said the stranger. The man began to look around the bridge for help. No one was within sight. He began to think about his predicament. Here he was eagerly pursuing a unique opportunity, and now he was being sidetracked for, well, who knows how long. "Maybe I can tie the rope somewhere," he thought. He examined the bridge carefully, but there was nowhere to tie off in order to get rid of his newfound burden. So he yells again over the edge, "What do you want?" "Just your help," came the answer. "How can I help? I cannot pull you up. There's no place to tie the rope while I find someone else who can help you." "Just keep hanging on," replied the dangling man. "That will be enough." Fearing that his arms could not hold out much longer, the man tied the rope around his waist. "Why did you do this?" he asked again. "Don't you see what you've done? What purpose could you have in mind?" "Just remember," replied the stranger again, "my life is in your hands." Well, now the man was perplexed. He reasoned within himself, okay, if I let go, all my life I will know that the other man then dies. And if I stay, I risk losing my momentum toward my own long sought-after salvation. Well, either way, this is going to haunt me forever. As time went by, still nobody came. The man became keenly aware that it was almost too late to resume his journey. If he didn't leave immediately, he wouldn't arrive in time. Finally, he devised a plan. "Listen," he said to the man hanging below. "I think I know how to save you." He mapped out the idea. The stranger could climb back up by wrapping the rope around him. Loop by loop, the rope would become shorter. But the dangling man had no interest in that idea. "I don't think I can hold on much longer," warned the man on the bridge. "You must try," said the stranger. "If you fail, I die." Suddenly, a new idea struck the man on the bridge. It was different and even alien to his normal way of thinking. "I want you to listen carefully," he said, "because I mean what I'm about to say." The dangling man indicated he was indeed listening. "I will not accept the position of choice for your life, only for my own. I hereby give back the position of choice for your own life to you." "What do you mean?" the other asked, afraid. "I simply mean it's up to you. You decide which way this ends. I will become the counterweight. You do the pulling and bring yourself up. I will even tug some from here." He unwound the rope from his waist and braced himself as a counterweight. He was ready to help as soon as the dangling man began to act. "You cannot mean what you say," the stranger shrieked. "You would not be so selfish. I am your responsibility. What could be so important that you would let someone die? Do not do this to me." After a long pause, the man on the bridge at last uttered slowly, "I accept your choice." In voicing these words, he freed his hands of the rope, letting it go, and continued his journey over the bridge. Thoughts? Oh, I love this story.
That is the one I was thinking of.
I know, it's such a good story.
Yeah, it is.
What are your thoughts?
Selfish.
Okay.
He was thinking of himself rather than the person.
What, who are you speaking of?
The person on the bridge.
The person on the
The
bridge.
old bridge.
Okay, the rope holder.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, what else? Thoughts?
Well, it's a very common experience in.
Don't open the present yet, though. Be
Oh,
careful.
yeah.
Don't open the present. I'm begging you. Give me another minute or two.
Okay, I won't say what I was going to say. You always.
We'll come back.
I've never heard this story, so it's completely new to me.
Good.
But it
Good.
sounds, if relating it to me, like they expect so much, but you have to know your boundaries and your limits. But you can only go so far, and you have to have them help you. It's not making sense to how it's coming out right now.
No, you're doing good.
It's like he put the choice back on them. He's doing what he can, and he's at that point. He needs to help himself in order to keep going forward.
Okay.
It's kind of
Somebody else? Laura, you might as well share. Cat's out of the bag.
Well, I think it's just very common that it can be very easy to take on responsibility and carry a weight for somebody else when they need to bear their own weight. And when you do that, you end up, you carry the heavy weight for yourself to the point where you then don't have your own heart or your own direction or whatever. And it
Right.
becomes a place that you lose yourself. Another way to look at it, I shared this recently with, when our small group got together, said, can you risk at some point disappointing somebody in order to not betray your soul?
Right.
And I think that's the thing, is we can so be careful to not disappoint anybody, make everybody happy, that you end up giving up your own heart and your own soul.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this little story, this little parable?
He should have asked before he grabbed the rope. why, what am I doing? What should I expect, so that you know what you're getting into before you commit to it.
Maybe you should have a longer rope.
As Christians, we're often motivated to help people who feel like they're falling off a bridge. I just met with somebody last week who's having some similar struggles that go along with my life, and while no rope was presented, sometimes that happens, and we end up wanting to, out of this heart's desire to want to help, we grab a rope that maybe we shouldn't have grabbed, and so what we want to do is we want to do everything we can to like pull them up or somehow keep them from falling. But often as we do that, it comes at great expense: emotional expense, spiritual expense, physical expense, emotional expense, only to find out that if somehow this guy had pulled him up, he's going to jump off another bridge next month. Because that's who he is, and that's what he does. So the question is, do we take the rope? Right? Or how long should we take a rope for if we choose to take a rope? Can we make the other responsible? Does it feel selfish to let go? Like Mark mentioned, because it can. Right? For a while there, on my computer screen, in a particular season of life, I drew this rope with a knot, and I said, let go of the rope. That was kind of my motto for a while. As a pastor, sometimes a lot of ends of ropes are presented to you. And it's like, I don't know if it's my job to take this rope. I think my job is to say, that guy's got to take the rope. That's not my job. But that can feel very selfish at times. Because you're like, well, what practically really am I doing here?
It's depending on how you frame it, because I think it can be the most loving thing that you give to somebody, to believe in them enough that they can hold their own life instead of you holding it for them.
Yeah, 100%. But we have to get past those initial, like I feel like somehow that's what defines me or makes me a good person or something. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because you guys all know my daughter just had a mastectomy, but not everybody knows that my oldest son moved in with me, and he has been alcoholic for years, and while Sarah was having her surgery, Alex was getting off alcohol, and I kind of had to choose who I was gonna stay with, because my daughter needed help with her children, and my son, he came to live with me. He went through the drug times with him, and wasn't a lot of fun most of the time, and took him to Kaiser, got him, with the doctors and all that. So I trusted God to take care of him, because I knew his heart was sincere. That's a journey you got to do by yourself on the most. I mean, you can have support people around you and encourage you, but you gotta feel the pain. You gotta go through the struggle of quitting drinking, and he's done great. And I just thank God, because that was hard to leave him and go take care of her, but that was how God led me, and he was faithful, and I think I followed God's voice, so yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Really awesome. Yeah, Robin?
What I think sometimes at least for me, I will go negative in my thinking about the outcome. And if I don't do this, something horrible will happen. But
I will surely die.
There was a boat on this river. Maybe it was, he could be fine and swimming to shore.
Right.
You're not giving people credit enough to be able to do it for themselves without you. Maybe that's just an ego complex for me, thinking, well, I have to be in the middle of this in order for it to have a successful outcome. I gotta let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
And in your hypothetical situation,
Mhm.
it was that either you're all in or you're all out.
That's right. He looked for other solutions. There weren't any that presented. So, and it's done that way, right? Intentionally
Right.
to
But
get you to a
generally-
visceral decision.
Generally, we never just go full in, you know, if, you know, we help in a sense, we give some partial help, but maybe not all the help that they're looking for.
Right. But if we're not careful, sometimes those people that want help are looking for us to become codependent or looking for us to become over-functioning. And so we may take a strand of the rope, but pretty soon they just keep feeding rope to us. And now it's not just a little bit of line. We got the whole thing. And we're like, when did this happen? Because they're looking to create that because that's what they need.
I call that the glue effect. Once you touch it, it's all over you. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and it's a lie that someone else's life is our responsibility. I mean, when you have a baby
Right.
and you raise a child, yes. But when they grow up, we gotta let go.
And I would argue, even as a baby, that life is still Jesus's.
Right, it is.
Right?
It's
You know, even though it needs me more as a parent than it does later in its life.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. At the heart of many of the relational problems, I would posit that there is a conflict over understanding and respecting limits and boundaries. This kind of touches on both the ideas. We're just going to paint a 50,000 foot picture here of these concepts. But understanding boundaries and limits is one of the most important character qualities and skills for emotionally healthy Christians. It's crucial. It's crucial in our families. It's crucial in our churches. It's crucial in our workplaces. It's crucial in our neighborhoods. It's vital. With every relationship we have, there are limits and boundaries. In order to be long-term lovers of God and others and go where God is leading and taking me. So let's dive into these two concepts kind of in a fashion. And you guys are all over this. You're doing great. An emotional, relational, spiritual, healthy life means learning to live within limits. So we'll start there. We'll start with the limits. Let's talk about that. We kind of brought this up last week. We talked about that there are physical, right? How many of those you guys remember some of the limits that we brought up last week? Just top of mind. Physical limits, right? In our bodies and what we can or can't do, how we are or are not fashioned, right? Whether that's due to age or disability or ability or whatever. What are some other limits? Remember any? I can just rattle off a bunch of stuff I have on my paper here, but I want to make it. You look, I got last week's notes right here. Not even my students are that good. I got to go back to your notes from yesterday. Education is a limit.
Time is the limit.
Time. Education. Oh, I said that one. Education. Experience. What you have or haven't experienced. What's that?
Health and capacity.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got all these things that are a part of us that sometimes are things just because it's just who we are, and some things were things that were imposed from the outside that are just a part of that. But so the thing is, limits come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. There's a ton, but we have to identify them and recognize them. And here's your next set of blanks here. Some are temporary, right? Sometimes limits, like a health thing, Bessie with your daughter, she's got some limits right now, right? Probably because of the stuff and the surgery. There's lifting limits and dietary limits and activity limits probably that's placed on her.
Medication.
And right? But the goal is that with healing, those limits can be expanded, or right? And so they're temporary. And some of us stay and have limits for the rest of our lives. My brother, I've talked about it before, has cerebral palsy. And that's just a limit he's always lived with. And so he has his left side is less developed than his right side. His right side's fairly typical. His left side is atypical. And he can't run. He can run, but he can't play sports. He can't run to play sports. When we played catch, I think I've shared that before, right? He had a right-handed mitt because he certainly wasn't didn't have the dexterity and the strength in his left arm to do it. So he would catch the ball, put it under his arm, take the ball out, throw it back, put his hand back in the mitt. That's the only way we could play catch. Certainly he can't play baseball that way. He can't run the bases. He can't swing a bat. He can't, right? Today, he is struggling because he's so overcompensated on his right side. Now he has to walk a bunch with a cane because his right side cartilage and muscles and so it's starting to break down, wear out. Some degenerative disc stuff in the lower back. He had a time a month ago or so, I remember talking to him on a Sunday morning before we started because he was in the hospital, had collapsed, couldn't walk. And the doctors got him up and going with some muscle relaxers and stuff because it was all nervous system stuff. But it was scary there for a moment. And this is a younger brother, but he has permanent limits that he has had to wrestle with Jesus about in his life. Of course, he would pray to Jesus, take these limits away. We call that healing. But Jesus was like, no, my design for you includes your learning how to do ministry with these limits in place. And he has. And he has done that. Super proud of him. Some of these limits come from here's your next blank, inside of us, while others are imposed from outside. So like there's a life situation. There are people who want to retire that thought they were going to be grandparents who are now parents again. And it's harder because you have limits with aging or ailments. Perhaps you have a scar from something in the past. Bouts of depression because of childhood abuse or other issues from childhood abuse. That would be a part of me. Put limits on you. I lived for a lot of decades without ever knowing those limits, and it was harmful, unfortunately. Personality traits. I'm not saying it's bad, but Dustin talks about being introverted. I think I might have him beat. I'm way on this side of the continuum for introversion. But I burn a copious amount of energy pretending I'm not, because my job calls for that, right? I'm with students or I'm on a Sunday morning. You're on, right? I can't just go huddle in the corner, pretend like nobody exists, and pet my cat. It doesn't work. I don't have a cat. Kim wishes, but I don't. She watches a lot of cat videos. And she hasn't been, so I discovered the other day, I discovered the other day, she has a particular voice that she uses to admire these fluffy cat videos. And she used that exact same thing complimenting me, and I was like, wait, that's your cat video voice right there. It was adorable. It wasn't a complaint at all. I'm still learning this beautiful woman here. But but in some respects, being an introvert is a limit. And I have to burn a lot of energy to not be that, so I can be around people and be high energy, even though it spends energy instead of draws energy. A physical reality. How many hours do you need to sleep? Some people need more than others. That's a limit. I wish it was less, I went to bed about 8:30 last night, got up at 3:30 this morning because I had a ton of stuff to do. And I worked from 3:30 this morning until I had to leave at 7, getting stuff done. Because somebody was at my house for dinner and I just didn't get a lot of stuff done, until they left at 8. And then I just went to bed because I was pooped. But limits, we all have limits. What are some of your limits? I think I have a box there. Spend a minute or two just reflecting. Where today, not yesterday's, last season's, not what you're not fearing for tomorrow, but what are some of today's limits for you? And this is your chance to be super honest before God and say, yeah, I can come to terms with this. This is a limit. I can't eat this like I used to anymore. I can't run as quick as I could and I needed to. I don't have as much strength as I used to have. I forget things more often. What are your limits? bottom line, and you can still write if you want. We can't do everything. Try as we might, wish as we could. We can't do everything. That requires making healthy choices. What path am I on that is going to take me to the destination that I need? And what are the limits that I have to know? I want to produce healthy results, the path. But when I try to take on, or I expect, or I want to do things beyond my limits, that's when I get off the path and become unhealthy. I think God knows our limits, and the path that's laid out with him, with us in this journey, compensates for those. In my weakness, he is strong. So God's got that. He says, take my yoke on. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. You know, it's like, yoke yourself to me because I can compensate for your limits because he has none. So, you know, there's lots of beautiful scripture that Jesus says, man, with me, that path is going to be a healthy path. A healthy path. But when I want to have my stuff and my way and the things I like, I can get off and become unhealthy. A lack of limits or boundaries allows for unhealthy comparisons, unhealthy scripts to play out. I remember when my brother and I are pretty close today, but weren't always that way. Somewhere around high school, my brother's limits started to really, I mean, he was in a life and death struggle with his cerebral palsy. And I remember the day he told me, and this was when we were both adults and we're kind of getting our stuff figured out together. And he said, he remembers, I think I had already gone to college, and he's angry at God, and he loves God, but he's angry because of his situation. Why am I this way? Why am I made this way? All those questions. And he finally felt like, he said, I finally felt God told me, you keep trying to run your brother's race. You're on his lane of the racetrack. Get out of your brother's lane and run your lane. And he said that Holy Spirit moment for him began the process of him getting off the comparison with me lane and onto his own thing. One of the healthy, right, his path. And that was one of the healthiest things that he did. Now the Holy Spirit was really kind to him, and he still struggled at times, but that was the beginning of something good for him that the Holy Spirit had done. Those comparisons, how do I know if I'm struggling with my limits? I make more comparisons with people. I start, I'll compare myself to some other pastor or where they are or where I'm not, and begin to go, oh man, and all of a sudden I start walking through all the regrets and all the bad choices and all of the, and then the Holy Spirit has to check me and go, but you're exactly where I need you to be today. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I need them there. I need you here because only you are going to be the guy for right here. Oh, yeah. And most of you guys know I've been full-time subbing. So it's like I've been doing 2 jobs and this is the last week for that, but it's been 5 weeks and it was supposed to be 2 weeks. And the trade-off is the money for the honeymoon is nice, right? Got the rental car paid for. But I've been having to learn my limits. And it's been frustrating, and it's been frustrating to me. And I would even confess this to Dustin and Karen. Like, there's things here that I'm like, I don't feel like I can be on top of stuff. And I feel like, Karen sweetly, kindly has been trying to get me to review this letter. And so I walked in today, and it's printed, it's sitting on my desk. And I was like, yeah, okay. And it's now edited on your desk. You saw that. So, but I was talking to my therapist about these guilty feelings. It's my responsible ed part of me, and she says, well, maybe responsible ed needs to learn some more grace of Jesus. Yeah, okay, me and Jesus and responsible ed need to have a conversation or two here, down the road, because I do have people that love me and surround me that are like, yeah, you're doing what you need to be doing for a season, and I'll get back on track. come this Monday. So it's like, that's really important stuff. Those comparison things help us know if we're healthy or not. When we don't recognize our limits, our lives get frenzied, they get covetous, they get out of control. If you feel like your life is careening out of control, there's probably a limits thing, right? I feel like the bumper bowling gals. Why am I always walking in the gutter? Right? Until I put up the bumpers, and then I start hitting the pins. Limits. Boundaries. Wow, I just made that up on the spot. That was good. I know, because some of you guys were doing that. Exactly. And the lady right next to mine had some ladies, and they were bumper bowling. Kim joined because she wanted to bumper bowl. She didn't want to try anymore. She was like, I'm just going to throw that thing. Otherwise, you're walking in the gutter. Right? And you're going to feel that. Wow. Where are limits violated for you? Where do you have those anxious feelings where you feel like, I think I might be stepping out a little bit? This isn't open for conversation unless you want to share. This is more of a reflection question because it's so personal. But where do you feel like maybe your limits, you're violating a limit or two? You're just trying too hard to compensate for something that Jesus is like, pull it in. Could be at home. You can't be super mom. Right? That's a thing. Could be at work. You're trying to get it all done and look really good. That's my problem. I've always been that guy. And now that I'm a little overextended, I can't be that person. It's bugging me. And there's limits there. Church, neighborhood. Usually anytime it involves any other relationship. But sometimes it's just what we want to do. So let's go back to our fable. What does this fable, we've talked about it a little bit already, but let's be very specific with what we're talking about, this topic. What does this fable today teach us about the gift of limits? Any thoughts? Limits.
Don't grab the rope.
Yeah. Yeah. What if you just won't have the strength, right? And yet you just, out of guilt or whatever, take that rope anyway.
Then you find the guilt, you find the strength.
Yeah, but you can't do it. And so the rope just slips out of your hands. And then you're just dealing with the guilt of you didn't even make the choice to let go because you violated a limit.
Saying no is a good thing.
Yeah. Saying no is a good thing.
And you're speaking to a room full of servants here, so.
I know. But I told you, Betsy, I told you, I think, but.
We always want to do whatever we can to help others.
Right.
I mean, I could totally see myself not knowing or maybe not thinking, well, what am I holding? I'm sure I would ask, but the first thing your knee jerk is, hey, can you help me?
How can I help?
Yeah, what do you need?
That's right.
Mine too.
That's right.
Yeah.
So back in Christmas, I know I've said this too, but back at Christmas, back to this teaching gig, back at Christmas, they asked me to teach 2 classes of economics. They needed an economics teacher. He had quit. And I could teach economics. It's not like that's a topic beyond what I can do. But I'm not a subject area expert. Like teaching Bible, I kind of just know what I'm doing, show up and teach. It requires less of me. Teaching economics would have required a lot more lesson planning and work for me. Only 2 classes. But I felt Jesus go, no. Nope. And I finally wrote the text back right at Christmas. Thanks for asking. I feel really privileged that you would think of me. Don't hesitate to do it again, but I just feel like I'm supposed to pass on this opportunity. Give you enough time to find somebody. So I did. Then when this teacher had these personal issues and her dad's on death's door and she has to go back and he's in hospice and he passes and they're there and she's helping her mom now afterwards with all the paperwork and everything. I know 1,000% that my no allowed me to say yes here. If I had not said no, I couldn't have done this for her and for the school. And this is what Jesus wanted, even though it's only part-time. Good thing. But if I had said yes to the econ, I couldn't have said yes to this. And saying no gave me the opportunity to say yes. And it made my yes even more powerful.
I have a friend that said, this is really great, she had trouble saying no to things, because she'd feel guilty saying no, so she said, she started this practice that whenever their phone called a pain, and somebody wanted her to do something, she said, I need to check my calendar, and she had on her calendar, no. She said, oh, my calendar says no. There you go.
That's funny.
That was her way to start setting boundaries.
That's pretty good. Yeah, we won't always say no. Like I didn't say no to the subbing, even though I thought it was only going to be 2 weeks and not 5. But I'm still convinced, regardless of how it made, I actually learned some things about myself through this, right? Me and responsible ed having a conversation here with Jesus. But I knew that yes was what I was supposed to do. And you'll know when those happen. But we don't even give ourselves a shot to say yes if we're so busy because we can't say no. So it doesn't mean we say no at everything, but we have to know what we're saying yes to and give it power.
Sometimes we say yes, just like you were saying, you know, you thought you were going to do it for a short time, and end up being an extended time, in your case, 3 times longer, right?
Yep.
And I can see us kind of doing the same thing. We're thinking it's a short-term commitment, right? We're just
Mhm.
hoping just for a moment of time, but then it turns out to be a long time. And when we take on a lot of those, we get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because we want to make the commitment. We don't want to disappoint people. And we want to follow through with what we said we can do,
Right.
and what we're willing to do to help.
Right.
So we stretch ourselves pretty thin sometimes.
And I think, just to put that on that, sometimes we say yes to things thinking that we're not going to be as deeply involved, or it's not going to take as much time as we expect, and then suddenly you find yourself being the responsible person, or, oh, you're really good at this job, and you end up taking on 100% of something when the impression up front was you were only going to have to do 20% of it.
What might help us in discerning if this is the yes or if the decision should be a yes? Yeah, let's put it that way. What might help us discern that?
Right, have the, if you were the work or the ask defined, right? And then agree on how much you're able to help meet that request. So you have a better understanding up front.
Okay, so let me see if I can echo that back differently. Ask enough questions so that I know if my capacity will work for that.
Sure, that's
Is that fair?
that would work.
Okay. Okay. What else?
I think it's a real balance, because there's a place of you have to kind of know yourself, be self-aware of where you're at and where your lines need to be at.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's just this flexibility in your heart to be able to allow God to move you and to mold you in your heart, where your passions are and where He's moving you to say something or do something.
Right.
But I think it's a blend of both. It's being able to be aware of what He's guiding me to, but also be aware of myself. Because it's not about, I don't pray every day, God, should I eat today? Is that going to be good for my body? No, I know it's good.
I think
for
you
my
should
body.
text
Yeah.
Kim every day, should I eat today? And let her hold that rope for you and tell
Don't do
you.
that. I'll make you a cookie.
Yeah,
I'll be right there. But I think it's that, that's a silly, we don't ever do that, but
Right.
I think we also feel like, well, I should pray and God should guide me about how to take care of what I take on, and that's true. But on the flip side, you also have to know yourself and know where your lines are that you're overstepping. And for me, because I give out a lot,
Right?
I have to have lines and boundaries of what I give
Right.
into myself. And I'm an introvert, so I need time alone.
To recharge and
I
replenish
really have
and
to have
renew.
that.
Yeah.
And then I need connections, but not where I'm giving out.
Correct. People who don't drain you, but people who feed you, or ways that feed
Right?
you.
And
Yeah.
that there's something that's a give and take there.
Yeah.
I had a decision that I had to make recently, and I was talking to Dustin about it, and he asked me, well, have you been praying on it? Yeah, I've been praying on it. What's God saying? I said, it's nothing, it's just like silence. And he offered to me a strategy he sometimes takes in prayer and says, God, this is what I'm thinking I'm gonna do about this. Can you stop me if it's not what you want me to do?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. God can guide a moving car more than he can a stopped car. And so I think that's kind of like what you're saying, is get on the road and trust that this is a step you're taking in the best that you can of knowing.
Right.
And then ask God to guide you. If that's not the right path, close the door.
Naughty Ed has just thought of an interesting story to say, but I'm not going to do it because I'll get in trouble. Not a real story, just okay, Naughty Ed's going to say it. It goes like this. That's what I did November 11th.
Whatever. Oh, my day you got me.
Okay, God, if you don't want me to do this, you stop me. Yeah, that's Naughty Ed. Okay.
Doesn't sound like he stopped you.
No, Jesus is up there like, go, dude.
Well, that was really helpful because sometimes I get frozen when I don't
Yeah.
hear from God and I'm not feeling real strongly one way or the other. I
Right.
can freeze up.
Right.
The other thing too is somebody's asking is, define your limits up front, rather than just take it on and hope that you can do it.
Yes.
Explain to the person that's asking you, say, I can do this, but you have to understand that my time's limited and I only have this availability. And then I'm gonna do the best I can, but if it doesn't work out, we're gonna have to look at this again.
Right.
That way there, it doesn't come too much as a surprise that, hey, I gotta let go of the road, right?
Right.
Or maybe I can hang on a little bit longer.
But it may not be just time, it's also our passions and our priorities. And that's the blend that we need to add. Because I might have time, but this may not align with my passions and priorities. And it all has to kind of, and that's, that balance is how Laura said that. No, go ahead.
And if it doesn't align with your passions, you could be giving out and burn yourself out because it's going to take more energy to
Right.
do something that's not with what your heart is and that God's made
Right.
you to be.
And you might be stepping in where somebody else is supposed to be. Just because we were available first doesn't mean that that's what God wants. The guy who's like this 28-year-old hunk of a dude that's got all the girls' attention, who took that econ class on, God wants, yes, I'm comparing and I'm jealous. God wanted him there. And so if I had done that, he doesn't get that opportunity. So and that wasn't what I was supposed to do. My passions didn't align. Teaching Bible that's my thing. I love that. And so we let other people do it. So great point, Mark and Laura, you guys. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, am I in trouble?
No. No, I'm hearing it just a little bit different because I'm hearing it as, for me, and because I have so much new learning in my job that every time somebody says, hey, can you? There's part of me that wants to say, yes, I can. And so for me, I'm learning there has to be an element of humility in it that says, this is my limit. And to be able to say, no, well, I would need help, I have to have that humility check and not just always press forward from a place of pride and can, but to just stand back and just really say, okay, what's my motivation here, and can I stay within a boundary where I'm not, in my case in particular, really putting myself on a limb where failure is an option, but to be humble enough to say, no,
And you're in a place where you're learning, right? It's
Yeah.
new. So you're learning limits as you go. And a place of humility as you do that is probably the healthiest way to navigate finding those out, in this new job you have.
The other thing, if you're the one that's organizing something, and you're putting on something, if I go back in the past, I was a PTA president, and I had 38 board members. I built that board. But I was very clear and intentional that if I asked somebody to do a job, that I defined what it was, and if the job changed, or I needed something else, I would go back to them and say, this wasn't part of what we had discussed,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a need. Is that doable or not? If it's not doable, I'll find somebody else. But I think there's just a need for open communication. And if it starts to feel too much, then I think it's talking about it. It's just like,
100%.
I took this on and now I'm feeling like it's more than I really can take on. I think that openness of communication
Yeah.
is how we can deal with it.
Let's move on here because we won't make it through.
I'm sorry, just one quick thing. All of this seems to be talking about saying no, but sometimes it should be a yes. If you're asked something, it's
Sure.
outside your comfort zone, and it's where God wants to stretch you.
To round out this thing, healthy people learn to, this is kind of a recap then, discern and live within their limits. Healthy people on a healthy path learn to discern and live within their limits. All right, let's go on to the next word that we all know and love so much. An emotional, relational, spiritual, healthy life means learning to live within boundaries. Right? Boundaries. Limits are internally and externally imposed limitations, literally from that word, a limitation. Boundaries are limits I impose on others. Okay, so it's two sides of the same coin here. So we talked about one side of the coin, the limits that's imposed on me. Boundaries are the limits I impose on others. Following that? Okay, that's kind of the easy way to remember that. They're the realization that I am my own separate person apart from you. And that's a good thing. Okay? There's a place where you begin and I end, or I begin and you end. There is a boundary there. Enmeshment removes that boundary and things get tangled and it gets really messy and really unhealthy. So we have to know where we end and they begin. Yeah, that's the right way to say that. Where I end and they begin. People with poor boundaries feel compelled to do what unhealthy others want. Back to our parable. Even though it's not what they want to do. I can't say no without a boundary. So some of the limit was, can I hold the rope? Is this my job to hold the rope? How long can I hold the rope? The boundary is, should I be holding your rope? Right? So if I can't say no, I feel like, I can't let this person down. They would just be too disappointed in me. That's a boundary issue. Where I might think, I have to be nice. That's a boundary issue. You can set a boundary and be nice. They will be ticked off, but you can set a boundary and be nice. Why are they mad? Because you put a limitation on them. But that you can still be nice as you do it. That's not your problem. That's their issue now, right? I've put a healthy boundary in place right here, and if they're upset, and they probably will be because it cramps their style, they'll have to handle their emotional state. We can't drop our boundaries. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you mad, and all of a sudden we give in. To be healthy, I must, here's your fill in the blanks, I must define and protect. I must figure out what they are and then protect my boundaries with anything that breathes. I'm going to protect that boundary, and they are going to get tested. The other people, when I talk to people who are dealing with some boundary issues, especially with family, they are going to get pushed, poked, tested, punched, lifted up and under, the old camel under the nose of the tent kind of thing. They are going to look at all sorts of ways. They're going to tell you you're a horrible person. They're going to make it personal. They're going to do all sorts of stuff to test the boundary, and you have to be able to, in love, stand firm. Yeah, lots of easy words. not so easy to do. But it's still important. That's being healthy. We've got to define them, set them, protect them. The world's needs are far greater than what I can supply. I've tried. The world's needs are far greater than what I can do, what we can do, what you can do, what we can do together. Betsy, the needs that you do in your ministry are way bigger than what we're going to handle, even with your little family. There's just too much. At some point, you've got to say, this is what we'll do, right? And this is what we can't do. And we have to discern that. What is the best response in the long run? Acknowledging the other person's unhealthy expectations. Broken, unhealthy people often use they abuse healthy people in order to maintain some sense of control in their life. And we're okay with it because we're going to hold the rope because it makes us feel good, even if we really can't. You following? I'm trying to keep our parable in here. And I don't mean physically abused, but they're going to take advantage of. It will always happen. Unhealthy people will milk every ounce of strength and energy and vitality as they can from you. They will drain you if you let them. I had a pastor once. He called them drainos. They just, they will take everything out of you. And we have to be careful, like Laura mentioned, how do I replenish? I can't just go without, I have to have boundaries. When I meet with my therapist, we've got a 50-minute window. And sometimes I've just got a lot to want to talk about. But I have learned to respect her boundaries by watching the clock myself. And I'm the first to acknowledge it looks like we're about out of time. And I don't make her say it for me. I'm trying to protect our professional boundary so that our relationship stays really healthy as we continue to go. Now, if she wants to break her own rule, that's on her. But I'm going to watch and help do that together with her because that's a good boundary. She needs recoup time between clients. And I'm a end of the day guy. We meet at 6 o'clock on Zoom or FaceTime. So I know she probably doesn't have anybody after me. She yawns a lot while we talk, but she fits me in because she doesn't, that's important for our schedules. And I respect that, but she has a life boundary and I don't want to go over my time because she's got a husband and she's got a family and she's got stuff and I don't want to, that's not my job to drain her of her energy. And that's that blank right there, right? Without knowing our limits and establishing healthy boundaries, we are drained. And it's not just of our physical energy, our spiritual energy is drained as well. Because that's where we draw with God from to do what we do. Healthy people learn to discern and impose appropriate boundaries in their relationships. So let's talk about some of those really quickly as we come up on our time boundary together. Integrating limits and boundaries into life. Number one, practice consistent self-care. Practice consistent self-care. The authors of Love Languages talk about tanks, their love tank. And you could probably use that metaphor for a lot of stuff. What's my spiritual tank? What's the gauge read on that thing? Or my emotional tank, right? If the emotional tank's running on E, how big of a fuse do you have? And not much of one, right? It doesn't take much to spark off a complete meltdown. Physical tank, where it's just like, I'm just wore out. I need to sleep. I need a nap. I need to rest. I'm just burned out physically. Or relational. Sometimes that's another tank too. Relationships. Relational tanks. And so self-care are the things that we do, and I would say with Jesus, right? Even if he's just churning in the background, that fill our tanks back up so we have reserves out of which to be our best true self. Okay, number one, self-care, super important. Do you know the things that are good self-care for you? I know some of you probably do. I do for me. Some of you may not. You've got to figure that out. You've got to figure out what helps me renew self-care. Number 2, place boundaries on invasive people. Right? Invasive, like a species or a plant or something that's out of context.
Like my weeds in the backyard? Yeah.
Invasive people. If Mark texted me and said, hey, dude, can we go to blah, blah, blah? Yeah, man, I mean, let's just compare schedules. Mark's not an invasive person in my life. But other people could become invasive people. They're constant. It's always there. They're very needy. And they want to, they don't respect your boundaries of time or space or where you're at. Invasive. I've got a person right now from our bigger family who I'm trying to figure out if this is an invasive person or not. You know, they have some needs. I'm going to test the waters here in the weeks to come. But they're kind of in a needy place. And when I know somebody's in a needy place, that's where my little warning flags go off. Careful, 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 careful. Watch here, you know. So we may have to set a meeting and then maybe back away for a while. So we'll have to see. I don't know. I'm just telling you where I'm at. They are joy robbers. They are time suckers. They're the Drainos, invasive. Okay, so that's an important word. Number 3. Give yourself permission to say,
No.
ta-da. That is a boundary that you establish with someone. No, I can't. Now, I would say, sometimes it's good to say, here's what's going on. Let's be transparent. Sometimes when you're on the other end and you're hearing the no, it's really hurtful if they just say no. You don't know if it's a screw you or a, I just can't, here's what's going on. And, you know, it's always good. I think, Mark, you were advocating that. Explain and let people know, here's what's happening in my life. And you may have to say, I've got a lot going on. I've got a lot of things right now that just require a lot of me. And that's why it's a no. And it's not personal. Sometimes you have to say, I have to say no to this because, and it's a hard conversation, you know, especially with a family member, right? We have a lot of family members not coming to our wedding. There's a no here. We put a boundary up for very specific reasons. And so, you know, I'm having to have some hard conversations with some people, you know, as to why they won't be here for the happy occasion. Hey, if you want to throw a reception and you want to initiate something, I'm there. But for this ceremony, there's a very unique and distinct group of people who have been walking for 3 years with us with full support and Jesus, and they're going to be there. Other than that, you know, if you're one of those, well, I'm not so sure, I guess I'm forced to, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't get to be at the wedding. Okay? And I'm speaking of family members, not Converge family. So, being able to say no. Number 4. Is any question? If you have stuff, yeah, jump in here as we go through these. Sorry.
There's a flip side to it as well.
Sure, okay.
It's, can we listen to other people's boundaries? So it's one thing for us to say no and set our boundaries, but can we respect and know that if we respect each other, that we can listen to the other's boundaries? And what I have found just in working on this for a period of time with my kids is, you know, like my daughter will say, you know, about the right time for me to come, and when Galen was like, both of us, is about 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, that's a boundary that works the best for their family.
Mm-hmm.
And so it isn't about, well, they must not value me to stay longer, or
Right.
it's really about that's what works the best.
Mhm.
And if I can work within what their boundaries are, then they feel respected and valued, and then it opens up this dialogue between us that we can just talk about freely
Mm-hmm.
with each other, and that it also brings up the fact that we can bring up when feelings get hurt. And, you know, I've had my son say, you know, Mom, we had this conversation the other day, what I really needed from you was just for you to be my mom, not my therapist.
Right.
And I thought, oh, you're right. You know,
Or I need you to be my dad, not my pastor, right? I've
Right,
heard those things
right.
before.
But I think those boundaries, it helps
Yeah.
both sides, then it's
Yeah.
freer to
Yeah,
know.
100%. Please go to number 5 and write in the word others in the blank.
There you go.
Ding, ding. She is tracking. And we'll come back and talk about that for a sec, but I need to define a few terms first. So, number 4, Learn how to live with boundaries together but separate. Okay, now we're going to talk about differentiation. So, this is me having a really good sense of self, me knowing me having a good sense of who I am. I know my thoughts, I know my feelings, I know my judgments, I know my fears, my hopes, my beliefs, my abilities, my likes, my dislikes. I have a feeling of this is self, and this is my true self, more importantly, in Jesus. And I'm learning my true self in Christ. Self. It's really important. I need to know me. I think that's part of what Paul's trying to do is he teaches us what a true self is, to know who I really am, but in Jesus, in Christ, who he has designed me to be, and how I'm starting to live into that in my life. Because I'm going to be shedding some old clothes and things of the old nature and taking on part of the garments of Christ, right? And putting on Christ in my life, in my true self. So myself, as I walk the journey of sanctification, shifts a little bit. But Jesus helps me know me in him as my true self. And that's really important because then we're going to talk about differentiation. Who am I as a self compared to who Kim is as a self? See, when we get married, it's not that we lose our sense of selves and we become this one weird integrated thing. No, we are still selves, but we have come together in a union of selves, and now there's a we. So there's two I's and a we, and we have to use the we to help us both submit our I's to the we, but we still have a sense of who we are, who the I is. Does that make sense? Remember the old way that they would do a unity candle at weddings, way back in we don't do stuff like that anymore hardly, but, right? You would take the candles, and then you would light the unity candle, and then what would you do with these candles? Yeah, no, keep them lit. Because you're still selves. So you still have a sense of self, but you still have a unity candle as a we. Does that make sense? So, Mark, you don't lose who you are, right? You're the bike riding guy, and your wife cheats you. No, thank you. I'm going to do these, So you have a sense of self, even though you are a perfect we as a couple in how you're living your life together at the same time. That's being self-differentiated. You following that? We can be different even as our own selves, even though there's a we there. That's a healthy way to live. But too often we lose a sense of self-differentiation and things get muddled, messy, and bleh.
That's a really important point, and if you fast track to the end of life, what I've noticed in working with the widowed population is that if you have a clear sense of who you are separate from your partner, so you each have your separateness, and then you have a togetherness. So when you lose the togetherness and that partner's no longer there, you still have your separateness, right, to navigate.
Right.
But where it gets really tough is if you have not had a separateness and it's all togetherness.
Yeah.
And you don't know who you are.
Your whole identity is completely lost, right?
And people, they just get lost in it. And it's, so having a sense of a separateness, I mean, I'm speaking from my vantage point, but it was really.
I'll give another example here in a second. But yeah, moms who their whole life is their children go away, they have no sense of self anymore because it was all about myself as in the kids.
Happened to me when my last child left the nest. Just like,
Right.
I didn't know what to do.
Because you hadn't self-differentiated enough through that time and you maintained a sense of who you were as you served your children as mom.
And I found out who I really was after the children left. I mean, I knew in my heart I wanted to do the things that I do now, but I didn't have a lot of time, so it'd be like a weekend trip to go serve the homeless or something. But when the kids were gone, then it was like, oh, I can, but it took me months to get there. And I kind of had a nervous breakdown before I finally got there. I did. I lost my cookies. I literally lost my cookies.
I found some for you. Thank you. I'm here all night. So, where we really see this, Edwin Freeman was a rabbi, but he was really good at the self-differentiation stuff. Wrote a lot of books about it. If you know anything about Bowen theory, family systems theory, this is all about this kind of stuff. Our church congregations are anxious systems. They're a family. So I've been trying to get Dustin to read more about how this stuff works within a church family because it's important, because y'all are anxious too. And this is where we see it really play out, is when there's anxiety. Anxiety is like when you take that guitar string chord, Dustin's metaphor, and you pluck it, and it creates a wave, that anxiety gets felt through the relational system. I know I'm talking fast and big with a lot of theory here, but we feel anxiety. And so if Kimberly and I are having some anxiety here and that chord is getting plucked, the first thing that we're going to want to do is, it's called triangling. We're going to pull somebody else into this relationship. So all of a sudden I go to Mark, can you believe what Kim is doing? It's driving me crazy, And all of a sudden now I've pulled him in because I have to have somewhere to put my anxiety. And I can't put it onto her because she keeps putting it back onto me. We're having a conflict. So if I can go put it over here onto Mark, I feel a lot better. But all I've done is transfer my anxiety over to here. And how was he supposed to do? Triangulation. And so we start triangulating all over this anxiety. And if I'm a self-differentiated person, I can start to be a non-anxious person in the middle of that. So where Mark would be tended, let's say if he's not well self-differentiated, what's he going to do? He's going to go to Kim. He's going to go to Robin. And all of a sudden this thing's going to, become this weird.
Gossip happens.
Right. And it becomes this problem, this mess. But if Mark's not anxious, hey, Ed. Yeah, that's hard. All of a sudden he becomes this non-anxious presence with me because when we're self-differentiated, that anxiety doesn't have a chance to grab hold and take root because we can have a sense of self. And that anxiety doesn't affect me so much. So without going into all the systems theory and how all that works, you can tell if you're well self-differentiated by how you handle anxiety, especially in your closest relationships. And if it really stresses you out, you're probably less self-differentiated than if you're able to stand in the middle of the conflict and go, you're going to be okay. And you can be less anxious and be that calming presence.
Think about all the trials that you went through that God pulled you through, gave you the strength, you endured, you learned, even if it hurt. That helps. And just kind of pray before you go and start spilling your guts to someone else,
Jesus is the ultimate non-anxious presence in our life, which is why I will always point to Jesus.
Sort of rotted that out in prayer, journaling,
Right.
and then, share with someone close who knows you.
Try taking your complaints in prayer to Jesus about the other person. He's always going to go, let's talk about you.
Yeah, and if it's like a relational thing, what I learned how to do when my son was on heroin, I learned it, and that is to wait on the Lord for every word. I don't have to respond to someone, snapping at me right now. I can wait and pray, let it calm down,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
when the moment's right,
I also believe that's really good. I also believe we can come to a point where we get more skilled at being able to do that. Not that waiting on God isn't important, but I can also become more skilled where God's kind of present with me, and so I can be non-anxious without having to put it all into prayer, which means I can respond better in a moment without reacting and maybe having to go back and apologize or just, cut off and bailing and coming back, things like that. Did you have
But for me, I'm not there yet, and I am.
Many of us aren't, Amanda. You're in good
so
company.
In the beginning of learning the boundaries, it started with a couple Bible studies with Laura's group through
Mhm.
resilience and setting
Yes.
boundaries. And I'm more lost today than I've been before, where I'm trying to set boundaries with the situations at my house with grandma. I'm like, like, I hear what's going on, I hear the suggestions, but for me right now, giving it from what I know, in theory and in my head to practicality,
Mhm.
I don't know what happens, where it goes, but it goes out the window.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even know where to start to.
It is hard to start. One of Friedman's books about this is called Failure of Nerve. And that title is all about, it's just, we have a failure of nerve, and it gets tough for us to put the right boundaries and things in place to be a non-anxious person, or to be a self-differentiated person. And so you're feeling and experiencing all the normal things that people do, but there's also, you got to figure out how to not have a failure of nerve. And that's, Jesus, where's the courage to stand and stay standing? And I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah, I don't have.
So I just want to encourage you with that. Number 5, we've already done it. Learn how to live with others' boundaries. So I want to add to it now that we've had this conversation. Number 1, respect for differentiation. That's what Laura was saying. I need to now respect Kim's differentiated self, and Laura's, and Mark's, and Amanda's, and Karen's. That's really critical. Separateness is good. Treat one another as Christ would treat the individual. The more I learn about how Jesus treats the anxious, the better I get. Right? I think, yes, Kim.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it.
No,
No. Before I go on to an example, you go.
No, I was just thinking about like what Amanda was saying with the whole differentiation. And without it, you run the risk of missing out on your own joy. Because I was thinking about,
Good.
like right now, if I wasn't as differentiated from my mom, her cancer and her treatment and everything could easily overtake where I'm at.
Right.
But, and then I would miss out on all the, engagement joy. But if I was so wrapped up in Ed and just being, like, oh my gosh, I get to do da-da-da, then I wouldn't be there for my mom at the other side, and at work, it's interesting when people find out that I have both going on simultaneously. And they're just like, oh my gosh, and it's just, and I just usually say, like, you take the good with the bad. Like, I'm going to experience all of the emotions of this season because I can't deny or put off the season that I'm in. So,
Yeah.
but it's interesting to have those two opposite sides going on.
And the way I have loved learning to love her is to make sure that she as a self can engage with her mom, and I'm really good with that. And she needs her self-time there, and that's highly in priority for her. And so I'm going to respect or honor that need of her, to be able to do that and ask after that, right? I'm like, how's your mom? You saw your mom. Talk to me about your mom. Where is she at? And I even told her, I was telling Betsy earlier today, if all comes to push and shove on the 23rd, the big day, and her mom cannot make Half Moon Bay, we will completely change the ceremony. We'll do it in their house. It's too important for her to have her mom there. And you know what? It won't make me anxious. We'll just change locations.
Yeah.
And I'm super good with that. And then we'll go to Half Moon Bay.
Exactly.
But her mom, there's a priority that we share to allow us to differentiate like that and live that way, as an example.
And that's wonderful that you both can have that healthy, kind of relationship. Because, like, one of my ex-husband would have been like, well, I need you here. You can see your mom when I'm at work or something. I don't know. It would have been,
Yeah, we all know people, I think, where we are going to have a tougher time being self-differentiated around. Last one, it's okay to disagree. I know we don't feel like it is sometimes, but it's okay to disagree. In fact, that's the stuff that Dustin's been trying to teach us about healthy tension in relationships.
Yeah.
It's okay to disagree. In fact, it's healthy to disagree. A bunch of people who walk in lockstep are not going to be as healthy as people who love each other but have some differences of opinion. It's a much stronger union because you are still separate strands. The strongest cord, the Bible says, is 3 strands wrapped together, right? That cord will not break, the Bible says. Those are 3 separate cords. They don't mingle them up. That would be one cable. They are separate cords, but then they are wound together, still separate. That, the Bible says, is the strongest union. That's unbreakable. that's being and like I say, there's a whole bunch of study with a whole bunch of books, and it takes a whole bunch of time, not needing you to like know all of that, but just some basic concepts here today. God invites us to do life, work as a place of rest, and watch carefully where that's getting violated. That is a flag in your life. Okay? When rest seems to be violated. You may be burning the candle at both ends. Boundaries. Okay? So, limits, boundaries, and we can get on a healthy path. Any final questions or comments as it is now our boundary time?
I think it's just good to remember that if you haven't practiced boundaries, it can be scary
Oh.
to take that step and to just take a little bit of a time. And then tell yourself too that it's hard if the other person doesn't respect what you're saying as a boundary. So, and you have to kind of keep setting it and kind of be like a broken record.
Yep.
And so it's hard because you think if I say it, then, won't you just do it?
Mhm.
Well, sometimes that doesn't happen. And so you have to kind of repeat and keep
Mhm.
holding your boundary. And so
Wait, even if they guilt trip you?
even.
Okay.
Even.
When?
So I'll give you an example of that. So when I first set a boundary with my mother in the relationship.
Mothers and boundaries. Those are big ones.
I had to be who she wanted me to be.
Right.
So we had a conversation, and it was a big conflict she had with me and my daughter.
Yep.
Anyway, but what happened was she said, I want to be close to you. And I said, but I don't want to be close to you. And here's why. It's because to be close to you means I have to be the Laura you want me to be and not the Laura that I am.
Mhm.
And that was hard to say to her.
Mhm.
But it was an honest boundary to say, I have to be me.
Right.
And I can't just be what you want me to be.
Right.
And so that's a difficult thing to say. It is a boundary, hard to say. But it was an honest, genuine, I can't keep doing this.
Right. The healthiest relationships are where two people can be close and still be themselves. And those are beautiful, beautiful things. But we are in a broken world, broken people, sinful people, covered by Christ's blood, some not, trying to figure this out together. And Jesus knows that too. And where we are weak, he is strong.
That's why I love our church family, because we all just love each other. We can be ourselves. We can be ourselves.
Be real.
Yeah, it's so rare in church.
It is a gift to be able to be in healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Let me pray. Let those of you who need to scoot. Jesus, we will confess. Let me just start by confessing. We know we're in a broken place. We're broken, sinful. Others are broken, sinful. We want to be like you, but we can never truly make the mark. We'll miss it. We know you cover that, forgive that, but it makes for tough relationships at times. But Jesus, I know that you, the God of the ultimate relationship, the ultimate self-differentiated personality, if we want to be like you, Jesus, it's in that way too. And so what I'm asking and praying for is exactly what Betsy was wanting, a church of families like that. A church family and church with family members who with their families are that way. And Jesus, I know that we're gonna struggle, and there's people all over the map. There's people who do that well, and there's people like Amanda who are just trying to get started on that journey and need you to help her have the courage to learn how to do that well so she can be healthy. I see that she wants that. And Jesus, I ask that your strength and your wisdom and people pull around her in a way that will help her do that. But God, help us become those people. Help us find ways to do the things that we're talking about, like self-care and spiritual soul care. Maybe that's even the better word for that. Help us develop ways of soul care with you, Jesus, that help us be healthier. Help us, God, where there are places where we're holding ropes that we have to let go to have the courage to do that. Help us, Jesus, to define ourselves and define things in us so that we know whether or not what our priorities are and limits are to whether or not we can help someone or not. Give us wisdom in that way, we ask. But Jesus, we just want to be healthy, and we want healthy relationships. We know that those can be parts where we struggle, where we sin, where we lash out, where we have regrets. But as we learn to follow and be like you, Jesus, may these concepts, even if it's just innately, or may we get help when we need it with these concepts so that we can live healthy lives with other people. And Jesus, I believe that a church that can do this is a church that will grow because people want to be a part of that. So bring joy where we need it, bring strength where we need it, and bring wisdom where we need it, and courage. And I pray these things in your name. Amen. Thanks, everybody. That was a lively one today.